Kirito kneeing Kyoji in the face, a scene so nice they showed it twice. This week's episode wrapped up the end of the Phantom Bullet arc of Sword Art Online 2, and I think it did a pretty good job. The pacing was a little all over the place and it was slightly disjointed, but it definitely had a lot of finality to this story, and I really loved the progression from Sinon's character, because we really get to see that she's finally starting to get over her fear of guns. And make sure to watch the very end of this week's episode, it's definitely a tearjerker. But let's get back to the beginning, where they pick up from last week's episode, where Sinon was being attacked by Shinkawa, and suddenly, Kirito just busts in the room and frickin' Falcon knees him right in the face, and damn is it just as satisfying as it was last week, when suddenly Shinkawa just takes charge of the battle and starts going all Rocky Balboa on his ass. This actually gets Sinon really fired up and she actually knocks him out. And this is the part of the episode where they try to trick you and make you think that Kirito was killed, because right before he was knocked out, Shinkawa used the syringe on him. However, he's still wearing one of those monitoring suction cups, and it is a little cliche. It's basically the Bible in the pocket thing, but he was saved by this. And this is the part of the episode I was slightly disappointed in, because I just wanted more follow-up on what was actually going on with Shinkawa and his brother. And they do explain it later on in the episode, but I wanted to see more of those characters, and I just feel like it's a missed opportunity, because you don't even get to see the police showing up and getting with Sinon and them escaping. It just sort of ends with Sinon breaking down right there with Kirito, and then they go to a couple of days later where you get to see Sinon as being bullied by those 3 girls again. And this time, I was like, oh shit, this girl's serious. She just pulled a pistol out of her pocketbook and is about to point it right at Sinon, and at first it seems like she's freaking out, like she hasn't really gotten over her fear of guns, when suddenly she grabs it, takes the safety off, and shoots this can, and that's when we figure out it's actually just an airsoft gun. Even still, it completely intimidates the bullies and definitely shows that Sinon is not going to take their shit anymore. We also get to see that Kirito and Sinon meet up with the director, and they get to learn a little bit more about the Shinkawa brothers and how they pulled all this off and how they actually used their dad's hospital to get these special cards and the syringes in order to kill people. The cards so they could break into their house, and the syringes so they could kill them. And it actually gives them a pretty decent alibi, although I gotta say, Kyoji's definitely just very clumsy in how he was planning all of this, especially with the fact that they were calling themselves Sturban, which is apparently a hospital term. They could easily trace that back to the fact that it's him and his father who works at a hospital, but that also shows the fact that, you know, Kyoji was playing very fast and loose with his plan, because, in a way, as Sinon put it, he saw GGO as real life, and then he saw our real world as the actual MMO itself. He got his priorities mixed up. He sort of switched reality with non-reality, and I don't know, something about that was really interesting, and obviously it just paints Kyoji in an even more crazy light. Same thing for his brother, who, they never even really show his face completely. He was the guy who apparently was wearing the skull mask when he was in SAO, and they're still trying to keep him mysterious. And they were also working with another guy, I think his name was Kanemoto, and they actually haven't caught him yet. And there was also a message that was sent to Kirito letting him know that this is not over yet. So, of course, the goosebumps just flew all down my arm during that scene. At the very end of the episode, prepare to grab some tissues, though, because it's going to be a real tearjerker when suddenly Kirito and Sinon arrive at his friend's bar, and all of Kirito's friends are there. And at first you think this is just a scene to sort of introduce all of Kirito's friends to Sinon. And they do that, everything's fine. But the real reason they did this is they wanted to bring Sinon here because Kirito told them all about her backstory, and that's because they wanted to help her out and let her know that even though when she was younger and she killed that robber, she actually ended up helping someone, 2 people in fact. And suddenly this mother and her daughter appear out of nowhere, and they come up to Sinon, and we learn that this is actually the woman who was working at the post office that day, who was about to be killed by that robber. And she was pregnant at the time, and if it wasn't for Sinon actually doing what she did, both her and her daughter would be dead. And they're there to thank her personally and apologize for never seeing her sooner. And I love the scene where the little girl comes up and she brings the picture to Sinon, and right as they're about to touch hands, they show the scene of Sinon and GGO, who has her sniper rifle, and then she just lets it go. Of course, this is clear symbolism that she has finally gotten over her past, and that she's ready to move forward. And frankly, it just puts a good feeling into your heart. And that's really good, because after last week's rapey episode, this is exactly what the doctor ordered. So, What's the rundown on this week's episode of Sword Art Online 2? I think it was good. Like I said, it was a little disjointed and there were still some things that I wanted to learn about, in particular the Shinkawa brothers. They did explain their plan a little bit and we got to learn a little bit more about how it went down and everything. You really got to just see how crazy they were. But I want more with them. I want scenes dedicated to them. I want to be able to get into those characters' heads and learn about them a little bit more, because even though they're sick and disgusting, they're clearly one of the more interesting characters from this series, and obviously that ominous message that this is far from over is just a great indicator that we're going to see more of Laughing Coffin in the future, and I really like that. Otherwise, other things that I liked about this episode is Sinon herself. Just definitely, I think, the standout female character of the entire anime series. I thought she was going to be a really annoying character. I thought she was just going to be like another, like, Kirito's mascot girl. And in some senses, she kind of is, but she doesn't, like, harbor any, like, feelings for him, like, in a sense of love. You know, obviously, he belongs to Asuna. She probably clearly knows this. And, I don't know. She's definitely more of the sister type. And now that GGO is over, I'm really anxious to see what they're going to do in the next game, and I really hope, if they do have another game, that Sinon's going to join them as well, because obviously she was pretty awesome in GGO. I cannot imagine what she would be like in a more traditional MMORPG. Maybe they'll bring her into ALO and we'll finally get to see the Sinon elf version, which I think would be pretty cool. I think she'd look really awesome as an elf, and she'd probably still keep the turquoise hair, and maybe she'd find a way to get some sort of special elf gun in that world, or maybe she will just start moving on to weapons. All I know is this arc right here is done. There still, I think, needs to be more explanation about some of the characters, and maybe this is one of those instances, or maybe I do need to look at the light novels if I want to get a little more information and a little more lore about the world. Otherwise, I still liked this episode. It wrapped up everything pretty nicely. It answered most of the questions about what's really going on at the end of this arc, and, you know, just pretty good episode. Nothing too crazy, you know, you're not going to expect any big action scenes out of this episode, but it did look consistently clean. The animation and the artwork was very nice, the music cues were good, and the very end of the episode will leave you a little misty-eyed. I know it did for me, but it also made me feel really good, and it let me gain a lot of appreciation from this arc right here, which is, I didn't expect this, but of the Sword Art Online series thus far, I really loved the first arc of the first season. But this one right here just really appeals to me. I love the design of it. I loved the whole GGO concept. I thought that Death Gun was a really cool villain and that his plan was sadistic and creepy, and I loved the mystery behind it. Kirito was back, but he didn't completely overshadow the season because Sinon was awesome. Everything just felt balanced, and I know that some people probably wanted more action and everything, but I loved the tension in this season, and in particular, I loved the characterization, which is something that I felt was really lacking in the first season of Sword Art Online. I cared more about the characters here. When they were in peril this week going up against Kyoji, I was literally fearing that Kirito might die. I thought something bad would happen to Sinon, whereas in the old seasons, like, whatever, they're in ALO, who cares? The only thing I can't get out of my mind is the fact that Kirito's cousin loves him. Ah! Oh God, no! Let's stop talking about that. Let's get back on track here. This episode right here was great. You should definitely check it out if you're a fan of the series. It wasn't a perfect episode, but it's a really nice finale to this arc, and I cannot wait to see where it's going to go from here because, who knows, I'm just ready to be surprised. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 4 out of 5. Check it out, guys. Pretty cool stuff. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, make sure and give it a thumbs up and like the video. And please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Sword Art Online 2 in the comments below. What did you think of the finale of Phantom Bullet? And what do you want to see from the rest of the second season of Sword Art Online 2? And if you guys have not subscribed to our channel, you can go ahead and do so by clicking on our channel icon right up here. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter.